Hello everyone. Welcome to this session, which is how to add sales order or purchase order data into JD Edwards with Orchestrator. My name is Larry Stocks and I am with GSI. So I'm been involved with JD Edwards development and a consultant since 1997. I've been with GSI going on 10 years, and I manage the development for both the project team as well as the managed services team here at GSI. So now let's get into how to add data to JD Edwards using Orchestrator. So first, this slide is a high-level list of what we're going to touch on. We're going to use Orchestrator Studio. We're going to go into JD Edwards within Orchestrator Studio. We're going to record a series of steps to create a sales order or purchase order within JD Edwards. This will be saved off as a form request. We will create a new orchestration leveraging the form request that we will be creating. And then we're going to perform some mappings, adjust some input and output options, and test run our orchestration. So the first step is within Orchestrator Studio is we are going to click the JD Edwards Enterprise 1 button. This will take you into JD Edwards. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is in the upper right-hand corner next to your name, hit that drop-down box, and you'll see an option to record a process. Once you click that, you'll see the process recorder pop up here in the middle of the screen. At this point, you'll want to start at the main JD Edwards screen so that the recorder will record all of the necessary steps to creating a sales order, which is going to be our example. One thing to note here is, it can be different depending on the client's needs. So you could start your process typing in the object name directly into the fast path, or you can follow your menu structures. But start in the main JD Edwards page and hit the record button, and then do your series of steps that your company uses to create a sales order. So now that we're ready, we're going to hit that start button. And the first slide here is going to show you the steps. So we are going to type in P4210 directly into the fast path. By doing that, on the left-hand side, it opens up the customer service inquiry screen. From here, you're just going to hit the add button, and that add button is going to open up the sales order detail revision screen on the right-hand side. Now you are going to enter in data and create an actual sales order. So you'll enter in all of the mandatory fields: order type, branch plant, sold to number, quantity ordered, item number. All the other remaining fields will be defaulted in based on system settings. You'll click OK to save a sales order. So once the actual order is saved within JD Edwards, and before you stop the recorder, you'll want to click on the Return Values button within the process recorder. After that, there's an X in the right-hand corner. You'll want to click that, and that allows you to click and select fields within the form and grid that you would like to return back into the process recorder. So in our case, we want to return the previous order number, previous order company, and previous order type into the return values. And you see, once I click this X up here and I click these three fields, you see that the field names auto-populated the return controls. So the reason being is we need these three fields so that when an orchestrator is used to create a sales order, we actually know what order number was just created within JD Edwards. Without these three fields, the process will run, it'll create a sales order, but we have no clue what order was just created. So that's why we want to bring these three fields back as return values. So to finish this step, you'll then hit the stop on the recorder, as that will be your last step of the process. And you see here in the screenshot, you'll name your recording, give a description, a product code. In our case, we're using 55 because this is basically a custom form request that we recorded. So once you fill in all that information and click the Save button, this will conclude the creation of the form request, which was the recording of all the necessary steps to create a sales order within JD Edwards. So now what you're looking at is the finished product for the form request we just created. So you'll see our names, descriptions, and product codes we used from the previous screen up top. Here in the middle, you will see the 2 steps involved to create a sales order, which is the customer service inquiry screen and the sales order detail revision screen. Now, depending on which one of these you click, it will list the details for each below. So in this particular case, sales order detail revisions step is pressed, which shows the order of execution for that specific form down here. So you noticed it has all the fields that we listed, all the mandatory fields, and then at the very bottom it has an OK button, which was our save, and a return form data. So this basically is a high-level detailed steps of the recording process that we just used. On the right-hand side is a list of available actions that you can add to this orchestration. So you can see you can add a variety of fields into orchestrations. So you can, there's a lot you can do here depending on what your orchestration is going to do. But in our case, we don't want to add anything extra. These fields and these steps are sufficient. So now we're ready to create a new orchestration. You'll want to go back to the Orchestrator Studio page, and within there you want to click the Orchestrations button, this big button on the left-hand side. When you click that, it will prompt you to create a new orchestration in which you'll want to name it, give it a description, another system code, which you can do up top. Now, what you see below is the general shell of an orchestration, which basically just simply includes a start process and an end process. There's nothing in between except a little plus sign here. By clicking that plus sign, gives you this prompt of available options to add to your orchestrator: form requests, reports, data requests, watch lists, connectors. You can make custom requests, messages, rules, white lists, other orchestrations, notifications. In this particular example, we want to select the form request that we just created. So we'll click the form request, and it takes you, it now adds it in the middle of your start and end processes of the orchestration. Now, if you hover over that, you'll notice there's 4 options that you have when looking at your form request within the orchestrator. And that's search, edit, transformations, and error handling options. We want to go to the transformations first so that we can get the necessary inputs from our form request added to the actual orchestration. So what you'll do here is click this transformation button, and this is what it's going to look like coming up. And what you see is here's all our fields. Now we want to add these fields from our form request to the overall orchestration. So very simple to do. All we're going to do is click this Add Inputs to Orchestration button, and next step will be going to the start process of the orchestration. Again, by hovering over the start, you have multiple choices to select. On a start process, the only ones you'll see is run, inputs and values, and a scheduling option. So we'll want to go to the inputs and values option. and once you select that, this is what pops up. You'll see that again, it now has all our input fields that were on the form request is now considered inputs on our orchestration. One thing to note here is the data types for each field. They typically come in as strings, so some of these may need to be adjusted depending on what you are trying to do in your orchestrations. In this particular example, the quantity ordered originally came in as a string. I physically had to change that from a string to a numeric on my own to make this orchestration work. So again, depending on what you want to do, make sure on your inputs and values screen you look and review your data types to make sure they're correct. Now, once we come in here and validate that these inputs are now there, we are going to want to now jump back to the transformations page again on the form request to handle the mappings. So I wanted to show you before and after. So when I go back into the transformations within the form request, again, here's all my input parameters. But you notice that the values are all blank. Well, there's an auto map button here in the upper left-hand corner. By clicking the auto map button, will, just like it says, will automatically map your form request parameters to your orchestration input parameters. So easy as that, hitting this button auto-populates. So the one thing to note here also is notice that the P4210 version is blank still. That's because we are not using the version. Remember at the beginning, our example, we typed in P4210 directly into the FastPath. We didn't identify versions to use or anything. So it's literally just the 5 fields that were required in sales order entry to create an actual sales order. So now the final piece is to set up your outputs of your orchestration. So you'll go to the end process. The only option in the end process of an orchestration is outputs. So within the define outputs section of the output area, you'll notice that the orchestration, it shows the inputs as well as our 3 return values that we decided to do within our recording process. The other thing to notice is on the far right hand side is you can select or deselect any of the fields to fit your orchestration. But again, in this particular example, we want to do select all. So now we've created a form request and we've created an orchestration, and we're putting those together, and now we're ready to test run that orchestration. So within Orchestrator Studio, you go back into your orchestration, and there's an option to test run your orchestration. And the first thing this screen pops up, the first thing you're going to want to do is hit the refresh cache button. Every time you test something, some sort of orchestration, you want to hit this button first. This will ensure that there's nothing hanging out there in cache from other runs or other tests to conflict with your test run that you're about to do. So you hit that refresh cache button, and then from there, you'll notice that I have the input parameters over here, and you have options to clear those parameters. You can debug, or you just click the run button. And over here on the right-hand side, it shows you input and outputs in JSON format. So the next screen here actually shows me filling in these parameters. So I just put in, an SO, business unit of M30, sold to number of 4242, quantity of 50, and item 2001. And you notice as I type those in, over here, I click the run button, and over here, it takes these inputs and shoves them into the inputs in a JSON format, as well as the output section. It again fills in the inputs, but it also shows you the 3 previous fields so that we know what order number was just created within JD Edwards. So when we fill these parameters in and click the run button, it filled all this in, and a previous order number of 3646 was created automatically in JD Edwards by using this orchestration. We didn't go into JD Edwards. We didn't enter in that sales order. That was all done within this orchestration. So the next slide is I'm going to show you a screenshot of that actual order. So now I went back into sales order detail revisions, punched in 3646, which was in that previous order number in the orchestration test run. I clicked find, and here's the order with the branch plant, sold to 4242, quantity of 50, and item number 2001. So at this point, I created a form request, a working orchestration that successfully created a sales order. So now at this point, we're going to take it a step further. Now we're going to talk about doing a modification to a sales order using Orchestrator. What I'm going to show you is how to add a modification directly or to creating a sales order without having to modify P4210 directly. We're going to create a sales order with custom prices versus taking the default price set up within JD Edwards. We have set this one up to create a first line of an order first, and then update the same order with any additional lines. The main reason for this is because the way we are testing the orchestrator within the studio does not accommodate arrays, which would be needed for multiple lines. So if you set it up to read a CSV file or something along that line, it would be able to use an array and create multi-line orders in one shot. But we're breaking it down in this example. So there is only one custom function below that we are using twice. So you can see these are also reusable types similar to business functions. So the next step is this is basically the first custom function to accommodate line 1 in creating an order. You'll see that we created this using Groovy. This can actually be done multiple ways. You could also call an actual JDE business function, but you would require a package build and deployment, but it's certainly an option. I simply went this route because it did not require a package build and was a quicker option for the scenario. Basically, the same logic you would use to build the JDE business function is used in this case, except that we are writing it in Groovy. At a high level, we are simply adding a new input parameter called new price, and stating that will be used as the new unit price while creating the sales order. So if you notice up here, this is some logic we added using Groovy. We named the custom function validate unit price. The input is a unit price, and the output is a net price. So as you can see, within the transformations of the first custom function, there is only one input called unit price, which we set up earlier using Groovy. So now, next thing I want to show you is the transformations of the first form request for line number 1. you'll now see that the list of input fields, which is very similar to the one I showed you all earlier, the only difference is the unit price has now been added as a viable input parameter. So remember, before we only had business unit, long address number, order type, quantity, item. Well, now we have unit price. Now we are going to I'm going to skip all the way to the end now because we have our custom function, we have our line 1 creation, we have our custom function again, the reusable one, and then this one is going to basically create all the additional lines of that order. So, as I mentioned, I'm skipping to the end as the transformations of the second custom function call is exactly like the first one. As you can see in our outputs, that it has all the fields listed we have been using throughout our example. This time, we are only selecting the return values to show you how you can pick and choose what you would like to see on the output. Our first example, remember we did a select all and showed everything. Well, in this case, all we want to do is select the previous order type, and previous order company. In this scenario, just say we don't want to see all the other values because we already know what those are. And we just simply want to see the previous order fields to know what order was created. So now let us go test our orchestration. We will want to go back to Orchestrator Studio and run our orchestration. So a couple things I want to point out here. First, notice in the input parameters that unit price is not there. That is because it is considered an input parameter of the custom function and it was set up to default in a price. Our next slides, I will show you some debugging and how you can enter in price outside of the default. Secondly, notice the output section on the right-hand side. In our original form request, you remember it showed all the input parameters as well as our return values because we did a select all on the outputs. Well, this example, remember we deselected everything else but only wanted to see these 3 fields. So at this point, we are ready to debug this orchestration. So we will hit the debug button, which is right here. So, all right, now it looks a little different, but works very similarly to the interactive debugger within JDE Edwards, if anyone has used that in the past. As you can see, once you go into debug mode, you have options where to set up breakpoints. And instead of breakpoints on specific lines within the interactive debugger, these will be breakpoints on the types or tasks within the orchestration. In this case, we are putting a breakpoint on each of the function calls. And notice to the right-hand side it has run, step forward, stop, clear breakpoints, etc. So very, very similar. So now we have our 2 breakpoints on the functions right before the creating of line 1 and the creating of additional lines or updating of existing lines. So after hitting run, it stops at the first breakpoint, which is the very first function call. You'll see the type lit up and it's checked when a breakpoint gets hit. On the right-hand side, you'll see the input parameters of that function call, which is net price we set up. Currently, it is sitting at a default of $110. From here, you want to change it to any price you prefer, but in our case, I'm going to change it to $65. Once the value is changed, you will want to hit the step forward button to continue the orchestration process. So I changed it from 110 to 65. I'm going to hit this run process. And you will see that the net process or the net price to 125 for item on line 2. So the next step is to finish running the processor. This created new sales order 3685, which is down here in our return values. So let me take you to P42 to display what was just created. So here's order 3685. I went to sales order, hit find, and here is the 2 lines I created, one at $65 and one at $125. So notice the extended price was auto-calculated, along with all the other necessary fields defaulting in based on system setups. So basically what we just did was we used an orchestrator and modified it to do some customization in creating a sales order without even modifying P4210. So basically, so now we're gonna touch on some additional features to orchestrations. So there's performance and data handling. This feature enables the designed orchestration to set a specific page size so the AIS server can receive data from the HTML server in chunks. There's XML formats. For REST calls, a JSON notification by default. There has been a new enhancement which allows the sending system to use XML notations for the inputs instead of JSON. There's what's called an open standard support for Orchestrator. This feature enables the external systems to discover orchestrations and provide notifications with inputs and outputs. This typically serves to execute orchestrations without the need to write custom code. There's attachments to messages report output. Messages are used to address critical events from applications requiring their response. Sometimes messages and notifications are not enough, so this new feature allows orchestrations to attach actual report outputs to those messages. You can launch orchestrations directly from JDE Edwards interactive applications. Oracle's enhanced this form extensible framework to now support orchestrations from JDE without customizations. This feature enables developers to extend functionalities of the base JDE Edwards forms with orchestrations. You have form extensibility. Basically, this enhancement enables developers to add an additional business view to table columns on the supported query and transaction forms. This is typically handled by using the form extension user-defined object. There's a customization object analyzer enhancements. JDE Edwards now simplifies the process of identifying customizations within your system that can be replaced with extensibility framework. So you can see there's a variety of features to orchestrations that can be leveraged, as well as modifications directly to orchestrations to eliminate adding modifications into your system. So in summary, as you can see, by utilizing the various orchestrator features, you can drastically increase the efficiency of your day-to-day business processes. In addition, by using orchestrations, gets your company into the digital age because it can integrate with any external systems and cloud services. This allows your current E1 system to send and receive data to third-party systems your companies use. Orchestrating and automating your key business processes will also assist in less human involvement. By automating a day-to-day activity, it will lead to a more optimized operation, removing repetitive work for users, lower costs, and fewer user errors. So now that's been said and done. That's pretty much the end of our session. If anybody watches this, has any questions pertaining to our example, or just in general how to create some basic orchestrations, how to remove customizations and add those into orchestrations, or any development requests at all. My contact information is right here on the slide. You can contact me, work number, cell number, or you can just simply email me. I respond to those on a daily basis. So everybody, just please feel free to reach out to me. And I appreciate everybody's time. Hope everybody gets some good use out of this. Thanks again. Bye.